No one on the right side of America can stand the star of this movie.
She just sounds bitter and angry.
But you don't seemingly like your own character, so she comes off as an insufferable, whiny brat.
I never want it to come off as me being ungrateful for the opportunities I have. I can also be having the greatest time and simultaneously wishing people would stop sending me death threats.
The fallout began the moment Rachel Zegler opened her phone camera and hit record. What was meant to be a heartfelt message, a reminder to fans that she was still standing strong despite the hate, quickly spiraled into what many are now calling a full-blown public meltdown. Tear-streaked, emotionally frazzled, and visibly frustrated, Rachel defended herself in a now viral clip, insisting that people still line up to see her work.
When the winged victory came to the Louvre in pieces, and people still line up to see her. And I can only hope that despite my flaws, and despite my cracks and my breaks, and there are many of them, that at every premiere and everything I do, people will wait in line to see.
And if you disagree with this sentiment, I don't need your business. Thanks.
But the internet wasn't buying it. Instead of applause, she was met with mockery. Instead of support, she faced scorn. And instead of sympathy, the video was passed around as proof that Rachel had finally cracked under the weight of her own controversy.
Rachel Zegler is extraordinarily woke, but she's woke in a way that's quite deranged. I truly do believe that. There's something wrong with her. She's disturbed, she's unhappy, and she thinks it's about feminism and the patriarchy and about abortion. But the reality is she's just not stable, like the majority of people in Hollywood. They're just not stable human beings. I would highly advise that you boycott this film, no matter how much your children love Snow White.
Within hours, hashtags like #SnowWhiteFlop and #ZeglerMeltdown were trending. TikToks, memes, and parody videos flooded every platform, turning her emotional plea into the internet's latest spectacle.
Excuse me. Your curtain. Please allow me to help.
Help? From you?
I didn't mean to offend. I just thought you should know that
That I should know what? That some privileged white guy thinks his opinion matters? Get over your entitlement. I'm not some damsel in distress waiting for you to ride in on your high horse.
Do you want me to keep it short and cutting like this, or expand it into a more detailed, headline-style sentence, e.g., mentioning box office numbers or critical reception?
Snow White, budget $250 million, box office $43 million. Oh, but it's only been 2 days, give it a chance. No, I'm not going to give it a chance. I'm not even talking about that number. Because like all the flops are unsurprising at this point. Something is going on behind the scenes with almost every major animation, video game, and movie studio. That they're doing this intentionally or something. I don't fucking know. I'm not even going to talk about this. People are like, oh wow, Snow White flopped. Who is surprised? You cast arguably the least genuine, most out of touch, and disliked person in our industry, and our industry is Hollywood. And the bad guy is Gal Gadot.
Opening weekend numbers were nothing short of catastrophic. Snow White scraped together a meager $45 million, a figure that might have been acceptable for a modest indie release, but for Disney, and for a legacy princess title no less, it was a disaster. By comparison, The Little Mermaid, despite its own share of controversy, still managed a $95 million debut. For Snow White to earn less than half of that was a glaring signal that something had gone terribly wrong. Audiences didn't just stay away from theaters, they actively tanked the film online. On IMDb, the score nosedived to 1.6, making it the lowest-rated movie in the platform's history. That's not just failure, that's cinematic infamy. And while box office analysts scrambled to crunch the numbers, fans were busy re-uploading old clips of Rachel Zegler, clips many believe doomed the movie long before it ever hit the big screen.
I'm a narcissist. The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so.
Okay.
There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. Yeah. Weird. And then it became like, I will elbow everyone out of the way to play the part. That people will assume is a love story just because like we cast a guy in the movie, right. Andrew Burnap. All of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows? It's Hollywood, baby. I say, if I'm going to stand there 18 hours in a dress of an iconic Disney princess, I deserve to be paid for every hour that it is streamed online. And we absolutely wrote a Snow White that is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be.
Footage of Rachel openly mocking the original Snow White began circulating again. In one now infamous interview, she dismissed the classic as weird and outdated, even laughing off the idea of a prince while insisting the remake would be proudly non-romantic. At the time, Disney framed it as a bold reimagining of a beloved tale. But in hindsight, critics argue her remarks didn't sound like modern progress, they sounded like outright disrespect.
There was an in-depth piece, like a behind-the-scenes piece, talking about how they've been in a full meltdown about this girl for a couple of years now, and how they had her tweet out like a little, "Yay, Snow White, can't wait, so excited, I love to play her." And she did it and got like millions of views, and they were like, "Good job, Rachel." And then she, like minutes later, followed it up with, "And never forget, free Palestine." They flew an executive, one of the producers, out to go visit personally with Rachel Zegler to say, "Could you please take that down? Because we understand you can have your political views, but those aren't really helpful while you're trying to build an audience for a movie. Maybe you could save them for like your diary and your friends, but like maybe not, maybe just take the tweet down." And she wouldn't. And then they had to hire a special media consultant for her to follow her around all the time and make sure she didn't continue shitting on Snow White and the prince and young love and women who want to get married and Steven Spielberg, the executive producer of her previous movie, and white people who she claims wanted to know if she was really a Latina on her first movie.
After all, she wasn't just playing any role, she was playing Snow White, a character beloved for generations. Disney fans weren't simply disappointed, they were furious. The backlash wasn't only about a bad movie, it was about what many saw as the mockery of a cultural staple. And just when it seemed things couldn't get any worse, a new storm hit. Political commentators seized on Snow White, reframing it not just as a box office misfire, but as a loaded cultural statement.
Alright guys, I watched Snow White, so you don't have to. Let's get into it. Now first things first, Snow White gets her name not from the fairness of her skin, as we obviously know Rachel Zegler would be a miscast in that sense. Instead, she gets her name from surviving a snowstorm. Her father and mother are king and queen to a utopian communist society. I'm not joking, guys. Everybody shares and is mindful of what each person is getting, and we spread our resources evenly, which is where this idea of fairness, as Snow White is the fairest of them all, is really presented in the film.
Soon, the phrase communist undertones began surfacing in reviews and Reddit threads. Viewers dissected the film's themes and dialogue, accusing it of being anti-royalty, anti-tradition, and even anti-American. Conservative outlets argued that the movie's heart had been hijacked by politics, stripping away the whimsy and moral clarity of the original in favor of heavy-handed ideology. And while the box office numbers told one damning story, the behind-the-scenes tension between Rachel and her co-stars added yet another explosive layer to the narrative.
Please welcome Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot.
Visual effects push the boundaries of what we see on screen.
Their work makes the impossible seem possible.
With breathtaking ambition, they create magic that wraps its arms around our wildest imaginations.
Here are the nominees for Best Visual Effects.
The public's first real glimpse of Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot together since the controversy spoke volumes. There were no warm glances, no shared laughs, no posed pictures. Gal, who plays the evil queen, kept her distance, arriving separately, posing separately, and, according to insiders, making it clear beforehand that she didn't want to share press time with Rachel. One source put it bluntly, Gal has been actively trying to avoid any further association with this project, especially now that the narrative has shifted so dramatically. To the public eye, it looked like a quiet but unmistakable disavowal. Meanwhile, Disney's traditional audience, the one that might have once carried Snow White to box office glory, had already walked away. Parents who grew up loving the original were vocal about skipping the film entirely. Some pointed directly to Rachel's remarks, dismissing the classic as weird and outdated. Others condemned the ideological rewrites, arguing that the film no longer resembled the story they cherished. One viral TikTok from a frustrated mother summed it up in a single line: "This isn't Snow White. This is a lecture with glitter." Comment sections filled with similar sentiments. In trying to modernize the story, Rachel and the filmmakers had seemingly alienated the very audience that made the character iconic in the first place. And now, as the dust settles, Rachel's career is beginning to show cracks. Industry whispers have turned into murmurs, and murmurs are becoming headlines. Several projects she was once attached to are reportedly in limbo. Studio insiders, speaking off the record, claim some deals have been paused entirely. Roles she had been shortlisted for are rumored to be quietly recast. One executive reportedly labeled her a walking PR hazard. With no A-list stars stepping in to defend her, that label may stick. It's a sobering turn for someone who, not long ago, was billed as Hollywood's next big thing. After West Side Story, Rachel's lure was seen as a fresh-faced darling, charming, talented, and just edgy enough to stand out. Snow White was supposed to be the role that cemented her status for a new generation. Instead, it has become a cautionary tale. Between the film's disastrous reception, the resurfaced interview clips, her mounting unpopularity, and what now looks like a very public breakdown, the industry is viewing Rachel differently. Even those who once rooted for her have grown quiet. Other Disney stars, normally quick to support a fellow princess, have said nothing. Not a single public message of encouragement. Not one tweet. Not even a vague Instagram story. For a star who once had Hollywood at her feet, the silence is deafening. And when you pair that silence with growing concerns about her emotional stability, the picture darkens further. People aren't just questioning her judgment anymore, they're questioning whether she's okay at all. As her future projects hang in limbo and her name becomes more synonymous with controversy than with talent, it feels as though the It Girl glow has faded far sooner than anyone expected. In its place stands a harsher spotlight, one that's only getting harder to outrun.